wiggle.
So they're finally here, performing for you. If you know the jetpack, you can fly too. Put your hands together if you wanna fly with this jetpack on. Hey, you let's fly real high. Shout out, this CGF crap. It isn't funny. If you know the words, you can fly too. A coconut spurt. He's back again and about time too. And this time, he's in the mood. He can fire in spurts with his jetpack on. If he's gonna shoot ya, he'll make you smile. He can fly real high when he plays his tune. But gremlins beware, cause he'll make you fire in spurts. CG spurt real high. He can spurt real high. 1, 3, no, is the master of disguise. If you listen to Lazy Mouth,
Have a rotten day. I'm number one.
This episode of Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by Puddin'. Instead, it's brought to you by all those little fuzzy creatures that you want to take home and make friends. I know I adopted a critter. She's right here. Wave, kitten. You can't hear that, but that's her fuzzy paw waving into the microphone. And she's the best little kitten ever. And if you want to get yourself a friend, don't go to the pet store. Go down to your local shelter and adopt a puppy or a kitten or a full-grown adult dog or cat or whatever else they have. And if you've hit your pet quotient, which there really is, there's a limit, don't get too many, then you can still help out by donating your time or your money. They always need help. So go down there and make it happen.
Thinking sideways.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I am Devin, joined as always by
Joe.
who already looks bored, and
No.
Steve, sorry, I was looking at him. He kind of had
he
this...
looks super bored already.
He had the face of somebody who's been caught. He had the expression of that, like, oops.
No, I'm serious. That's all. I feel
For
serious
this
about
super
this whole
serious
thing.
episode.
This is a serious topic here.
All right. there you go.
Okay.
This is about that continent at the bottom of our world that keeps us right side up.
It
because
is.
It weighs a lot.
It's true. It's
Is
true.
that the center of gravity, or is that the fulcrum?
It's our ballast. It's our ballast.
Oh, God. Another term. It
Another
gets me every
term.
It's
time.
about the center of gravity is in the middle of the Earth.
That's
Yeah.
the North Pole.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously. Sorry.
Yeah.
We've already divulged. It's fine. This is going to
Oopsie.
be good. Devolved, not divulged.
Yeah. No, divulged would be sharing some... Yeah, you got it.
It's
Yeah.
great. Today's episode was recommended by Colton. So thanks, Colton.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Guy.
Or
Thanks, guy.
woman, or thanks,
Pal.
person. Yeah, I don't know.
Buddy.
Yeah.
And we are going to talk about Operation High Jump and the many weird conspiracy mysteries that surround it.
Yay!
Okay.
It's going
It's
to
a
be chilling.
Bodie mystery, kind of.
It's kind of got some boats
It's kind of a
involved.
lot of different mysteries put together.
There's a lot of weird stuff going on here.
It's true. Including me. You are likely
You
unfamiliar.
notice nobody started saying,
No, there's nothing weird about you,
Weird
Devin.
pause.
Sorry.
Great.
I totally dropped the ball on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
You are likely unfamiliar with Operation High Jump, which was officially called the United States Navy Antarctic Developments Program 1946 to 1947, and rightfully so, because why would you know about this?
Uh-huh.
Operation High Jump was one of 28 expeditions made to Antarctica, which is the South Pole for you people who don't know what that is.
geographically confused.
Yeah. 5 of these 28 were taken on by the United States. Unsurprisingly, Britain holds the record because they just like to colonize everything.
They visit everywhere.
They do, yeah. They visited Antarctica 11 times. And visits are still happening. These are just these like grand expeditions.
These
that
little-
Expeditions of Discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, there actually were a lot of the Argentines, for example, have been sort of poking around Antarctica since like the early 19th century. I mean,
Well,
very early 19th
They're
century.
much closer than we are. So.
They definitely. It's
That
a lot
helps.
easier for them.
Yeah. This specific expedition took place, if you were paying attention, you may already know, Took place from 1946 to 1947 and involved 4,700 men and lots of boats and aircrafts. Officially, there were 6 submissions of this expedition. Yep. The primary mission of the expedition being establishing Little America 4. Yeah, 4.
No.
I don't remember Roman numerals. It's fine.
I was like, IV?
IV.
So Little America 4.
Little America 4, which was just the base of operations for Operation High Jump. So
Literally the jumping off point?
well, yeah, it's kind of weird. They were like, well, our primary goal is to establish the base of the operations for the expedition, where our primary goal is to establish the base of operations for our primary expedition goal.
I really feel like I'm watching a Leslie Nielsen movie.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's like, we were at a part of town they called Little Italy. Did you ever see that episode?
Of course I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the submissions, not to be confused with submissions, were 1, training personnel and testing equipment in frigid conditions. 2, consolidating and extending the United States sovereignty over the largest practicable area of the Antarctic continent. This was publicly denied, even before the expedition ended. It's always been denied. 3, determining the feasibility of establishing, maintaining, and utilizing bases in the Antarctic for investigation and investigating possible base sites. Number 4, developing techniques for establishing, maintaining, and utilizing air bases on ice, with particular attention to later applicability of such techniques to operations in interior Greenland, where conditions are comparable to those of the Antarctic. So what are you guys doing living there? All the 50,000 listeners we have in Greenland.
Yeah. Well, how many people live in Greenland anyway?
50,000, and all of them listen to us. Yeah.
Yeah, they're required to by law.
Yeah. The 5th submission was amplifying existing stores of knowledge of electromagnetic, geographic, geological, hydrographic, and meteorological propagation conditions in the area. This is fancy talk, you guys. I'm sorry. Yeah. And somebody printed the script like front to back, so it's like, it's fine. And
cheap paper.
I know. And 6 is supplementary objectives to the Nanook expedition, which was a smaller expedition to Greenland.
Yeah.
Off of the east of Greenland, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess Greenland is rather inhospitable from what I've heard.
Yeah.
Not the people. I'm sure they're wonderful, but the climate.
Well, no, that was God. Who was it that discovered Greenland? Do either of you remember? Because they named it Greenland in an attempt to encourage people to move there, to make it sound more hospitable and nicer. It's a green land.
It was the Vikings, I think, but it was. But actually, that was, I think, in the medieval warm period or something like that, or even before that.
Oh, was it?
And it actually wasn't all iced over, at least not nearly as much.
So it was kind of greenish?
It was a lot greener. Yeah.
So in an effort to try to summarize, as many of you have been asking for lately, in like 5 sentences or less, what this mystery is, the mystery here is that a lot of people think that this is just a big cover-up for one of many different reasons, and I want to play it a little close to the chest and not tell you.
Sure.
But basically that the Navy was sent to battle with like UFOs or like aliens or Nazis or to hide some stuff from public consumption. So that's our mystery, is what really was Operation High Jump and what were their actual missions.
First of all, when the military wants to hide something, they just take it to Area 51. So
usually,
I'm going to shoot that one down right away.
Okay.
Yeah, but they can't get all of Antarctica in Area 51. I mean, the temperature's totally different.
Yeah, but on the other hand...
Well, maybe they could, because if you just melt it down, I don't know how much there is. Let's talk about Operation High Jump for a minute. We're going to talk about who was involved and like what ships were involved, and maybe Joe knows some things about some of these ships. I don't know.
No, probably not.
Operation High Jump was officially organized by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd, Jr., the United States Navy retired. He was the officer in charge of Task Force 68, which
he was not retired at the time.
Sorry, he was not retired at the time. He was retired eventually.
Yeah.
He was still active. But he was the officer in charge of Task Force 68, which is what Operation High Jump, all of the people who were a part of it, they were part of Task Force 68. And a lot of them were like Task Force 68.1.
1.0.
Why not? Yeah. Oh, and it was led by Rear Admiral Richard H. Cruzen.
Because Byrd wasn't there on the ground per se the whole time.
He showed up pretty late and left pretty early.
Right.
Yeah.
That was kind of his gig, but he was not actually the point man.
It was kind of his gig because you may or may not know this about Byrd. He claims to have been the first person to reach both the North and South Poles. There's a lot of contentions about this claim. It is documented he reached the South Pole fine, but a lot of people think he didn't actually reach the North Pole.
There's a lot of contention about people who reach the poles. Every
Yeah.
time somebody says it, they're like, if you can't easily prove it, as in you took 100 people or filmed the whole thing,
Well,
it was
even
always
if-
contested.
Even if you took 100 people, it's kind of difficult sometimes. Well, I mean, I guess if you have the right instruments,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can prove that you were
But
there.
it's hard. I mean, there's not our listeners, I think, probably know this, but maybe not. There's not actual poles just like sticking out of the ground that say like this is the North Pole and this is the South Pole and
Well, technically there
congratulations, you've
have
made
been.
it.
Yeah.
Technically, there have been people who have gone, figured out their location, said, I am at the pole, stuck a pole in the ground,
Yeah.
and if you wait 25 minutes, that pole is no longer at the north
Right.
because of the ice shelves moving
Sure.
on the north anyway.
And to be fair, I meant like naturally occurring poles. It's
Oh,
not like
you mean like
everybody
you
could
see in
say,
the-
yeah, when you get to that pole, you're at the North Pole
Just like
because it's the North Pole.
Yeah, like a top's got that little thing sticking off the top of it that you use to spin it with your fingers, right?
Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
little known fact that the Earth does not spin because God is just like whipping us around like a top every once in a while.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. Sorry.
Oh, it isn't?
No, but we'll talk about that on a different episode.
Okay.
Anyway, Byrd had been previously on a funded expedition. The first United States expedition to the Antarctica was called like Byrd's Expedition or something like that, and he led it, and that was his big thing, was leading these extravagant expeditions.
Because these things always turn out so well.
Right. So that's why he was like in charge of the whole thing. I think he convinced some lawmakers and the president that it was worth it.
Or somebody said, hey, that guy, we should bring him in. He's done it before.
The impression I have is that he brought it to their attention, actually.
Oh,
that he was like, you know what we should do again? Go to the South Pole.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Well,
and
he
again,
probably did, probably did say something in the order of, there's a lot of people going down there and setting up bases. So we better go down and just sort of stake a claim.
yeah.
you know.
And we'll talk about a lot of the actual reasoning a little bit later. There were 5 different groups on the expedition, and they went different ways. I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at the map. There were different like approaches that people took.
They came all over the place.
They did, and I mean, it was kind of interesting actually. They ended up kind of completely coming from totally opposite directions to Antarctica, and basically the Navy just kind of circumvented the entire
Circumnavigated?
circumnavigated
That works a little better. Yeah.
the entire continent of Antarctica. They made like a big circle in kind of simultaneously around it, which again has a lot of people scratching their heads.
Really?
The East Group was 3 ships, which was the USS Pine Island.
Wait, so but back up here. This entire expedition was broken into how many groups?
5.
5 groups total.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we're describing as each of the groups.
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure I was on board with where we were.
Yeah, super important to the whole story.
Yeah.
The USS Pine Island, which was a seaplane tender, and there were over 30 aircraft.
Just plural is aircraft.
Yeah.
Without the S.
Over 30 aircraft that also participated in this expedition, both seaplanes and pontoon helicopters, which I think there's an actual term for, but I could not remember what it was.
I don't know. It's a good question.
It's fine.
Little floaty helicopters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with pontoons on
The
the
ones that go
bottom.
bouncy when they land.
Yeah, the USS Brownson, which was a destroyer, and the USS Canisteo, which was a tanker. And these were all like kind of state-of-the-art ships, by the way, as we're going through this. A couple of them were actually like the most state-of-the-art ships of the time,
Recently
but
built
most of
because-
them were
yeah.
pretty new.
Well, this is like the year after World War II in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We've been churning out.
We built a lot of ships. And so, hey,
We had to put them to use.
that's probably what this was all about. It's like, we got some bored sailors.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give them something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shh, shh, shh.
Oh, sorry.
The central group was the USS Mount Olympus, which was in charge of all of the communications for this expedition, and later became kind of the floating communications hub once they got to the space where they were going, which was the Ross Ice Shelf, right off the Ross Sea. So, those of you who know...
Ross Ice Shelf.
Yeah, those of you who know the landscape of the Antarctic know what I'm talking about, but probably no one else does. So we'll talk about that in a second.
Speaking of which, if you look at a map of Antarctica and you see like there's the Weddell Sea, which is to the east of the Antarctic Peninsula that stretches up towards South America, and then go way around that peninsula and there's a Ross Ice Shelf, and there's all sorts of seas, and there's just every regular intervals at like this sea,
there's
that
a different sea.
and it's like I don't see any particular reason why you should call this a sea, because there's nothing like sticking out and kind of defining it as a bay, a sea, or anything else.
It is my understanding that the reason that those are named, and please feel free to email us if this is wrong, but it was my impression that the reason that they're all named different things, lots of the land masses are named different things too, and that's because a bunch of different countries have come and been like, this is our sea, it's this thing.
Okay, and
this is ours.
That kind of makes a lot of sense.
That's kind
we
of
claim this whole area here. Everything we can see is ours.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
You can get all yours over there, and this is whatever we're doing here.
Yeah,
that's my understanding, at least.
No, I think so. Yeah, in Argentina, by the way, it's illegal in Argentina to sell a map of the country that does not include their chunk of Antarctica.
I believe that.
And they have a pretty substantial chunk.
Yeah.
They claim.
Yeah.
And
That's a waste of paper.
Yeah. It is.
So back to our ships. The USS Yancey was also part of the central group. The USS Merrick and the Yancey were both on supplies. That's all they were. The USS Senate, which is SENNET, not like Senate, like this Congress and the Senate, which was a submarine, and the USS Burton Island, and the USCGC, so the United States Coast Guard craft, cutter. Northwind, the Burton Island and the Northwind were both icebreakers, and the Northwind was the only non-naval vessel that was sent on this expedition,
and the only one that didn't survive.
Who killed it? But it was also literally state of the art. It was part of the Wind class. It was her and her sister ship, which was called the Southwind.
Makes sense.
I believe Southwind. And they were like state of the art, right off the line icebreakers, and they were in service for a really, really, really long time. This was one of the first expeditions that they were sent on. So again, we're sending fancy tools down here. There was the carrier group, which was just one ship. It was the USS Philippine Sea. And then the West group, which was the USS Currituck, which was another seaplane tanker, the USS Henderson, a destroyer, and finally the USS Casapan, which was another tanker.
Okay.
How many more ships do we have? This list is huge.
I know, sorry.
Going on and on.
I told you there was a lot of ships.
Okay, listeners, you memorized
We
that?
got a lot of ships to go through.
Yeah. The Western group of ships reached the Marquesas Islands, which is part of French Polynesian Islands, or French Polynesia.
Yeah, I hear that's a nice place, like
I've heard that
Tahiti
too.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to go.
Going to Tahiti.
Yeah. I'm going to go someday. Probably not as soon as you.
Yeah, the Polynesian Islands, they're super nice. French Polynesian Islands. There's also U.S. Polynesian Island.
No, I think so. Yeah.
There's a bunch of different Polynesian
There's too
islands.
many to keep track of at the moment.
These islands are parallel with northern Peru, kind of close to the equator, actually.
Yeah, not exactly a great place to set up as your base of Antarctic operations.
Yeah,
really.
it's
Not
basically
really.
halfway up the world.
Yeah. But I think they wanted to just stop off and like party for a couple of weeks, maybe. That was like an integral part of the mission.
It really is. It was funny as I charted the course, just because I have Google Earth open and I was trying to figure out, which, by the way, figuring out north on the South Pole is really a pain in the butt.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
the point is, I was looking, I was like, okay, so where is this in relation to the United States? And if you left California and you went on a 45-degree angle, it is almost exactly halfway between the U.S. and Antarctica.
Yeah, it's not
So
exactly.
it seems to be, as you said, kind of a stop-off point.
A little bit out of the way, though. Not kind of.
Well, one thing I will say is that it's not my understanding that all of these ships were coming from the same ports.
Oh, I'm sure they were.
Probably not.
Especially like even in the same group, right? The Western group was all coming from different ports, and they had to have some place where they were like, all right, meet there,
Yeah.
and then we'll all go through the dangerous part together, because that's why we're in a group, is so that we can, all work as a team to
Yeah.
go down. So I think that it was probably a pretty convenient spot. I suspect that some of the ships were not coming from America. So it was like,
Yeah.
let's just all meet here
Well,
and
there
party
probably
for a little while and then go down.
Yeah,
It'll be
there were
fun.
probably some coming from who knows where, Japan or
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor or God knows where.
Yeah. So they didn't actually reach that set of islands until December 12th, 1946. So when we're talking about this expedition running from 1946 to 1947, I know you have the impression that it was like a year, but it
Yeah,
was really
2
like
years.
less than 6 months.
It was like a couple of months.
Yeah, it
or
was
a
like
month.
3 or something.
Yeah, but less
It
than
was
6.
short, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
less than a half a year.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, because I actually had this question initially, it's like, why are you going there in the winter? That's so dumb. But it's actually
The
it's actually
southern
the
hemisphere.
summer in Antarctica,
Yeah.
so it's
No.
the best time to be there
Yeah.
if there is a good time.
There's
They're
not.
a little
it turns out.
confused, that part of the world. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
haven't
are.
They're
figured it out
upside
yet.
down.
They
Yeah.
are.
When they all got there, a bunch of the seaplanes started exploring southerly just to make sure,
They're
things
down
are
there.
good. Are there islands that we should stop at? Because I think, there was a lot of stuff that was still uncharted. I mean,
We didn't have satellites back in those days. Hard
We-
to remember, but
we
yeah.
were pretty sure we knew where things were. But, when you can't take pictures from space, you're like, well, I don't know. I think there might be an island there, but that could be from one of those fake maps that's, to test us.
We
or
talked about
something.
that years ago. Yeah.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was on December 24th is when they launched those. So after 12 days, they launched all of these seaplanes to explore down in the south regions. The eastern group of ships reached Peter the First Island in late December. There's not really a date attached to this. Late December of 46. The Peter the First Island is just about 280 miles away from Antarctica.
That's kind of close.
That's 450 kilometers for you folks who don't use the smart measurements. It's currently claimed by Norway, along with our favorite little island, Bouvet Island.
By the way, is the boat still there?
I think so. I don't know. I haven't
Probably
gone
their
out there.
national monument.
Yeah.
It's the Norwegian National Monument, actually, is this real weird boat on a
Yeah.
tiny little island on the totally other side of the world.
If Norway had half a sense of humor, they would take the boat away and replace it with another boat, that like a sailboat or God knows what. They really
Yeah.
should just mess with the world's head.
You know what we should do is we should start a Kickstarter campaign or GoFundMe campaign to get all of us to go down to Bouvet Island, to just the three of us, and just replace the ship on our own. Don't you think? I think that's a good idea.
I will go. I will take that challenge.
I'll
yeah.
hire a stand-in. I believe it's going to be rather cold.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
like the
okay.
cold.
that's what parkas are for.
I don't like the cold.
That's what tauntauns are for.
I don't like the cold.
Okay,
And it's not that bad in the summertime. Their summertime, not ours. Yeah.
Famous last words.
true.
Yeah.
Now, Antarctica has that kind of peninsula that Joe was talking about a little earlier that runs north towards South America.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, every peninsula off of Antarctica runs north, but this one really runs north. It's the only
Goes
peninsula.
way the hell north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are two kind of gulfs. There's the one gulf that's inside the peninsula,
Yeah,
and
the
then there's
Weddell
the
Sea.
gulfs on the outside,
Yeah.
both of which have ice shelves over the gulfs. The Ross Ice Shelf, which is where Little America is, was
I don't know if it's still there or not.
probably still there. There were a lot of Little Americas. It's kind of south of New Zealand, kind of on the other side. It's hard, like Steve was saying, it's almost impossible to say it's no there's no.
Getting your bearings is difficult.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't say, well, it's north, it's east, it's
You need to go by longitude. I mean, that's the only way to do it. I mean,
Right.
So starting at 0 degrees and just working your way around, that's kind
Yeah.
of the way to do it.
I didn't do that, so
Using a
Yeah.
calculator like that is annoying, though.
Yeah.
So
So realistically,
Yeah.
what you have to do is, if you really care about where the Ross Ice Shelf is just Google it. It'll pop
it's easy
up.
to see, easy
Yeah,
to find.
it's white. You have to
Yeah.
zoom out a lot before you can see anything but white. But then it'll show up, and it's fine.
Yeah.
That was just to help you get a little bit of bearings. The Eastern group arrived at the Bay of Whales, which is a seaport for the Ross Ice Shelf.
Actually, it went away.
Okay, was.
Yeah. It kind of disappeared when an iceberg was
melted or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they got to the Bay of Whales, like I said, on January 15th of 47. A little more than like a month later. Yeah, in late February of 1947, they were ordered to return home.
Mission is a success. Go home.
Plus, it's getting
We did
freaking
it.
cold.
Yeah.
So that's another reason.
Yeah. The goings on of the actual time on the Ross Ice Shelf aren't particularly well documented for public consumption, which is why we get to do an episode on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was not. They didn't have like documentary film crews along for the whole
They
ride.
did have some journalists, but since it was an active mission of the military.
Plus, the journalists all died, didn't they?
No. 4 men did die, but none of them were journalists. But they the Navy got to say what.
They got to review what
Yeah.
they wrote and approve it.
Right. I mean, the only form of communication was on a naval ship.
Did you read how some of these guys died, though?
There was a plane crash for 3 of them, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the other guy?
fourth?
Well, he got sort of
it's rough.
squished underneath.
That was
basically.
horrible.
Yeah.
So if you've ever
Yeah.
seen the big thing that they pour asphalt to make a road, and then they've got the big steamroller job that goes
Yeah.
across it.
He fell
They
onto
had
that,
one of
yeah.
those to pack the ice to make runways. He was like Wile E. Coyote on many occasions, sucked under the wheel.
Yeah.
So it's actually interesting. I've read 2 different accounts of how he died.
Oh, really?
Both of them are horrific. There was that one, and then there was another one where they were using a giant forklift to unload some of these other big pieces of machinery, and he just happened to be in the way, so he got crushed. They put down the tractor on top of it.
Oh, not knowing he was there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is also really rough.
That's why, whenever there's unloading of big things, I'm far away.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
as
seriously.
far away as
That's
possible.
why Joe is the worst to
Yeah.
help move.
I was going to say, they're like, Devin, come help. And I'm like, I can't. My back hurts.
I know.
Sorry. Bye. I'll take
Yeah.
some pizza.
Okay,
though.
so
Sorry.
the 4 men die, and then what happens?
Yeah,
and
but
then they were called in February, so where does that leave us?
great question, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
No, I mean, so the thing is these 4 men died, but that wasn't the reason that they were called back. They were called
Well,
back because the weather was bad.
Or
That was an
because-
acceptable amount of casualties, apparently.
Actually,
A much higher number would have been acceptable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Probably.
yeah. There are numbers about that, but out of 4,700 men, 4 deaths. But especially in a hostile, dangerous environment like Antarctica, it's kind of to be expected that
Yeah.
at least a few people are going to die.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is we don't really know what happened down there. They were supposed to be building this base and they were kind of paving a way for an airway, but that kind of didn't really pan out. And then they were supposed to be training on combat, but a lot of the ships were there for 2 weeks. So I don't know. I mean, there is a lot of training you can do in 2 weeks, but it seems like not a lot of stuff happened, which is kind of weird.
Well, I think that they were probably doing stuff like just testing their new toilets on board the ships just to make sure that they truly didn't freeze up like they were supposed to not do.
Yeah,
Right.
probably
Maybe it was
that's
just
what was happening.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Checking the plumbing.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Making sure the heaters worked.
Yeah, I
you
mean
know?
that was one of the stated missions was just to see how well some of
Test
their
the
gear and
Yeah.
other stuff held up in those kind of conditions, and
Yeah.
so I guess a month is long enough to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true, yeah. Byrd gave an interview in March of that year.
Admiral Byrd.
Admiral Byrd, retired, gave an interview in March of 47 on his return. I think he was in Argentina. I can't remember, to be honest with you, what.
I think it was South America.
Yeah, I thought
Somewhere
they
in
came
South
back
America.
to Chile or something. I was thinking it's
It is.
Chilean.
I think
maybe.
it
Oh,
is.
yeah, I think you're right, yeah. Where basically it was this kind of weird interview, and I don't know how accurate it is, but I'm going to read part of it because it kind of adds to
Well,
the...
and you see this everywhere.
Yeah, and it adds to the intrigue. Actually, Joe, do you want to read this?
Oh, sure. Let me put on my Admiral voice.
Yeah.
I'll just give the whole thing here. Admiral Richard E. Byrd warned today that the United States should adopt measures of protection against the possibility of an invasion of the country by hostile planes coming from the polar regions. The Admiral explained that he was not trying to scare anyone, but the cruel reality is that in case of a new war, the United States could be attacked by planes flying over one or both poles. This statement was made as part of a recapitulation of his own polar experience in an exclusive interview with International News Service. Talking about the recently completed expedition, Byrd said that the most important result of his observations and discoveries is the potential effect that they have in relation to the security of the United States. The fantastic speed with which the world is shrinking, recalled the Admiral, is one of the most important lessons learned during his recent Antarctic exploration. I have to warn my compatriots that the time has ended when we were able to take refuge in our isolation and rely on the certainty that the distances, the oceans, and the poles were a guarantee of safety. Unquote.
So that leaves a lot of people questioning.
Well, yeah, especially, I mean, I could totally see actually flying over the poles. I mean, actually, he was a little bit prescient because, of course, now we're always watching for those.
Circling them.
We're always watching for those ICBMs come flying over the pole from the North Pole from Russia. I'm not so sure about the South Pole. I mean, if Russia or anybody else. I mean, frankly, even if Australia wanted to attack us, I think there's better ways than flying over the South Pole to get to us.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I was going to say the other thing is that a lot of people read, and much as you have stated, I always took this, at least initially I took it the way you said, of like flying over the poles, coming from somewhere, going over the pole and hitting us. But he could have also meant something akin to what we were trying to do, which is someone establishes a base. So they're flying from the pole, so it's technically it's kind of over the pole to us, but that cuts down the distance required greatly.
Well, yeah, and I'm thinking about, like, if you think about the situation then, because the Cold War is starting.
Yep.
We're looking at potentially catastrophic war with the Soviet Union. And think about, that with all these planes and everything they have left over from World War II, if they wanted to, say, fly up to the North Pole, establish temporary bases for supplies of fuel, etc., and just refuel their planes there, all their bombers and stuff, for an invasion of the U.S., that's entirely a feasible thing.
Well, and they would have to have some sort of base of operations, because I actually looked into this, is that bombers of, large caliber planes like that are able to carry that kind of equipment had a range of about 2,000 to 3,000 miles.
Yeah.
So they would have had to have started. They couldn't have made the trip in one fell swoop.
Oh, yeah, that's why you say just establish temporary bases where they can stop, refuel, everybody goes to the bathroom, and then off you go on your way.
That's the most important part of the flight.
Seriously. I mean, I still wonder about those guys, like flying those long missions and like F-15s and B-2 bombers and all that stuff. I mean, what do you guys do?
There was a bucket.
Is that what it is? A bucket?
No, I've read accounts. There was a bucket.
Well,
and God help you if there was turbulence and the bucket spilled and you were the low man on the totem pole. You had to clean the bucket.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking more of the guys that are like sitting in say an SR-71 where you're in a tight little cockpit. You can't stand up and walk back to the bucket and urinate it.
No, that's a diaper situation.
I guess a diaper or maybe a coffee can. They give you a coffee can. You guys.
I don't know, but you guys are treading. Yeah, you're treading into theories category actually.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah,
you're right. The diaper is
next week our mystery. What do those guys do?
Yeah, no, but I mean there are some questions.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially the stuff about flying over the poles, especially the South Pole.
And we're going to talk about that in a second. But I do, one of the questions, right, is like, why did they call this high jump? Like, they're going to the most southern point of the world and calling it high jump?
Actually.
Why?
And that's suspicious, but I can answer that question.
I'm sure you can. Can you do it in theories?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Perfect. So Byrd, you may remember, I said, he didn't show up until like way late. He showed up on January 30th, and the evacuation orders were sent in like the middle of February. So
that's the way I would do it if I was going to Antarctica.
I would do it too.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of effort to put into basically what was like a month of photographs, because that was really the only takeaway that happened from this mission. Is they did take about 70,000 photographs.
About half of which were selfies.
No, but most of them were useless because there was no ground control on any of it.
And what that means for people who don't know is you fly in a grid pattern, line things up, and they didn't do that. They just kind of flew around.
And took some pictures.
So they had no
white
way
stuff.
of linking them together.
Yeah.
This is what's white. Hey, it goes with the one right next to it, which is
perfect.
White as well.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
So that is kind of sad. And I don't know why they didn't have some sort of more disciplined effort for that.
They should have, but that also raises questions for people. Is like,
maybe
were they doing something else?
Maybe they were just flying around like looking for secret stuff.
Or were they hiding something? Right? Maybe they did find something and they were like, "Oh, what do you mean we didn't take any pictures of that grid part?" Whoops.
They just pulled them out and took the notes off of them.
Totally. So that is the question we're going to talk about in theories is what was the real reason for this operation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But before we do that, let's take a break.
Everyone always thinks that little green men, or yes, as Devin says, maybe they're gray, are coming to Earth to take over and enslave us. But did you ever stop to wonder why they keep stealing our cows? What have the cows ever done to them? Well, the answer may be that cows, according to their culture, are the most highly prized pet that any green-skinned, big-eyed sentient can receive. And this is why whenever a pair seal their bond to one another, their family and friends have to travel all the way across the galaxy in search of one of our black and white bovines. As luck would have it, you and your friends don't actually have to travel all the way across the universe to get the perfect gift. And the reason is because of Zola. Zola is the wedding company that will do anything for love. They are reinventing the wedding planning and registry experience to make the happiest moment in any couple's lives even happier. With over 500 brands and 50,000 gifts, experiences, and cash funds, Zola Registry is everything you love about your favorite department store, plus the things like honeymoon funds, fitness classes, wine subscriptions, and so much more. It's so easy for couples and their guests. And with Zola's top-rated iPhone, iPad, or Apple Watch apps, couples can manage their registries on the go, and over 300,000 couples already have. Best of all, Zola Registry automatically integrates with any Zola wedding website, so guests can seamlessly shop and get all the details they need in one place. I know a certain podcast host on our team who's really loving what Zola can do. To sign up with Zola and receive a $50 credit towards your registry, go to zola.com/sideways. That's Zola, ZOLA.com/sideways to sign up for a $50 credit towards your registry. Because remember, it's way better than stealing cows.
And we're back. You ready to talk about some theories?
Yeah.
Because I know Joe is like chomping at the bit to talk about what I just told him that he had to wait about to talk about.
So what's theory number one?
Theory number one is that the Navy did it for the reasons the Navy did it.
They were telling the truth?
They were telling the truth.
Oh, when does that happen?
All the time. Duh. So
They said they were going to like win World War II, did they?
yeah,
They did?
we get to write the history book, so yeah, they did.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
We've won all the wars that we've been involved in.
Okay.
Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just assume that the Navy is telling the truth, that they sent more than 4,000 troops and several resources down to Antarctica to establish a base for a month, to establish a base for a month, to establish a base for a month.
Yeah, and
Right.
that all works.
And do all the other things they
and
said.
do the like 10 other things they said they were going to. Okay, 6, whatever. I mean, and there is, I know this was the thing you want to talk about, right, is like why Operation High Jump might have been called Operation High Jump.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of suspicion about that.
There has.
Yeah. But this was on the heels of World War II. And the military, the U.S. military, had burned through all the operational names. They have a huge list. And there's a whole office in the Pentagon that maintains this list. And they had pretty much burned through the entire thing. There were only a couple of kind of crappy names left.
Wait, is their list the equivalent to our not brought to you by list? We're like, it's running out.
Kind of like that, yeah.
New petition, change.org, somebody make this petition to make Team Sideways the official namer of operations from now on.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. They don't have to tell us what they are. They can just be like, we just need like a new name for an operation. And we'll be like,
Cuddly Hedgehog.
Operation Free Hug.
No,
So anyway,
I think
you were saying,
that's about it. I mean, I think that's not suspicious at all. They just they were stuck with a lame name because that was about all that was left over.
I mean, they did. There was an operation that was fairly simultaneous, which was Operation Nanook, right? Which was also an ice-based one. Like, why didn't they call it like Polar Bear Hug, Operation Polar Bears? I'm stuck on the hugs right now. Apparently,
Yeah, you kind of are.
Yeah. That is a good question, but yeah, Nanook kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Although that would be probably considered cultural appropriation. So
Well, it would be culturally insensitive. I don't know if it's appropriation necessarily.
The thing is, though, I actually to a degree, this expedition being taken on at this time makes sense when you actually, again, we got to look back a year or 3 to World War II, and there is that whole time when the Russians and the Germans are going at it, and Germans mostly, are dying in droves because they're freezing to death because they are ill-equipped and ill-prepared for this kind of terrible, terrible cold. And so, in a way, it's like, well, there's some things, Russia and U.S. were kind of giving each other the stink eye.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just gain a little bit more information just to make sure we don't get caught in that same situation.
Yeah.
No, because when you're out there fighting in the snow and your frigging rifle doesn't work, which does that kind of, and things like your Jeep doesn't work or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing to think about, yes, is this is on the heels of World War II, and that'll feed into some of our other theories. But it's also on the beginning of the Cold War. And
cold.
And it's cold, right?
Yeah,
but also like with Russia, right? And there's some saying, I think it might be in Russia, I don't know really where it's from, but it's like all Russia has to do is make it to the winter, and then
Stalin.
Yeah, maybe.
Stalin's the one who said that, I believe.
So I don't know if you know like the better quote or whatever, but basically it's like
basically that.
Yeah, all Russia has to do is get to the winter, and then Russia, the land,
Mother Russia,
will fight the war itself.
Yeah.
Because every single time somebody has tried to invade Russia or otherwise wage war on Russian land, they've just died in the winter.
I mean,
the winter is like 60% of the year there too.
I mean, and that was the French did it under Napoleon, and they suffered badly. Everybody who tries this, it ends poorly.
Yeah, granted, Napoleon I think tried to take like elephants, which maybe not the right choice. But
okay, listen, he had a lot of issues.
True. But no, so that's something to bear in mind as well. But let's go to more fun theories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are other theories?
This one's still not super fun, but still a little more fun. That the main reason of it was actually just to claim more land, and as we mentioned, that I think it was
just
listed
establish a claim of some sort.
Yeah.
If it was a specific parcel of land.
Yeah. That was the submission number 2 that we listed before. But again, it has been publicly denied the entire time, basically, that was actually a reason, which is weird, because
that was one of the reasons we wanted to get to the moon first.
Yeah, we wanted to claim it as ours.
Well, not necessarily claim it as ours.
We own the moon.
We probably do, but we most especially didn't want anybody else getting up there and staking a claim to it.
We wanted the cheese.
Yeah, lots of all the cheese and whatever, the cow that jumps over and all that stuff.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is this thought process of what if China or Russia went to the moon and went up and just knocked our flag over? What would you do? And I'm pretty sure that America would spend the millions of dollars that it would take to send another man to the moon.
If only we could do it for millions of dollars, Devin.
Trillions of dollars. However much money it would take, we would be petty enough to send another man to the moon, or woman, another person to the moon,
and
to knock their flag over and be like, what?
The current Yahoo would either do that or go on a Twitter tirade. One of the two.
No. I am fully supportive of NASA doing that in the instance that China or Russia goes and knocks their flag over.
No, for sure. We should go back to the moon anyway, or at least hire somebody like Stanley Kubrick to fake it.
Fake it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk is going, so
he'll fake it.
Yeah. Oh, Muskie.
Muskie.
Anyway, that was
your ox.
That was the long version of this extra theory. Is that also it was for this theory or this mission that of course it was.
Yeah, to claim a little piece of land. Why not?
Of course it was.
Oh, everybody else was running down there and staking a claim, and some of them seem to take their claims kind of seriously.
Like Norway or Argentina, which is the one.
Yeah,
that you have to have it in the map.
Well, no, it seems like but Argentina does, but a lot of the other countries do too. Although they've sort of officially declared that, because some of their claims kind of overlap a bit, and so they've officially declared that even though their claim is the right one, they're not going to make a huge stink over it.
Smart.
Oh, that's very big of them.
Everybody signed a treaty, so everybody's decided, we're right, but we're just going to just not, shoot anybody over it. Okay.
So this next theory is that it was a response to aliens.
Yeah.
Or a battle over a Nazi sanctuary.
Yeah.
This is really the UFO theory, right?
It's a good one, actually.
It's
I
not-
like I've
it's
always
not
liked
the
the idea of
worst.
the secret Nazi base
I
in
have
Antarctica.
too. Yeah. So that's one of the big proponents, or one of the big parts of this theory is there is a theory out there that there was a Nazi base that was established on Antarctica, and that's where, like, Hitler, because he didn't actually die, he was taken down.
He and his German Shepherd.
To Antarctica. Yeah.
He had a German Shepherd. He had a
Did
pet
he?
German Shepherd that he loved.
I know.
He took her with him.
I
He
know.
left. Is it Ava Braun?
Yeah.
He left Ava Braun behind.
Yeah.
Well, she
They took
had a
his-
bullet hole in her head, I think.
Yeah, so
she
he
wasn't
left her
really a
behind,
great
so he took
traveling
the dog.
companion. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it is a big theory that they had this thing down there, and that we knew about it, and so we sent a bunch of naval ships down there to once and for all obliterate the Nazis down there. I guess is the way that goes.
Take that, Jerry.
Basically, that in this theory, it was not storms that forced them to retreat; it was UFOs. Again, either terrestrial,
Allied with the Nazis.
either terrestrial or non-terrestrial. That's right. I'm talking about Nazi UFOs or alien UFOs all together in one coherent theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, take that.
No, I like it. No, it's entirely possible.
Yeah, I have some questions about that, but I'll wait till you get to the end of
Great.
this.
Okay, so here are some other things that people present as evidence. You might be able to hear my air quotes around that.
Yeah.
Evidence for this theory. Apparently, some of the ships were lost.
They were misplaced.
Yeah, the
This
U.S.
is not during the mission, though.
It was after the mission.
Yeah, they just sort of were misplaced.
The
yeah.
USS Pine Island was struck from the Naval Register at an unknown date. Her title was transferred to a maritime administration for layup at the National Defense Reserve Fleet. She was actually re-registered in Portland, Oregon.
Ooh, pick
Yeah.
me.
What?
Do you know where?
Uh,
Zidell.
Yeah.
Zidell right here on the Willamette.
Yeah, Zidell, which
in
is
Portland,
actually,
Oregon. That's
actually
yeah.
a stone's throw from where we sit right now.
It's true.
But it's
Oh my God. We're
Near
the
alien
product.
technology.
We're the product of it. Oh my God.
probably, but I believe that it was given to Zidell just to be chopped up for scrap.
Oh yeah, no, it was a scrapped up
Yeah.
ship.
It was.
No, actually, I saw an aerial photo of Zidell. I mean, huge acres and acres of land right next to the Willamette. Had like at least a dozen Navy ships tied up there in the river.
Yeah.
And on land, acres and acres of just piles of scrap. And they had it all sorted out into various things, but just piles and piles of it. It's a really cool photo. I'm not sure I was supposed to have seen that or not. It might have been classified. But,
So people don't know Zidell was a scrapyard.
Yeah.
yeah.
Ship scrapyard, mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't think it's any coincidence that this ship went down and participated in this, and then right after that, or 20 years after, 30 years after, was chopped up, and scrapped. I mean,
You don't.
yeah, it was 1972, I think, officially.
They've
Yeah.
done that to a number of
Yeah.
ships.
Right, but
Yeah.
it was
Oh, yeah.
it was struck from the register before. It disappeared,
Yeah.
and then it came back just to be scrapped.
Yeah. I have no idea how that happens, but I mean, it's a big bureaucracy. The Navy is, and I imagine they misplace ships all the time.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure
Yeah.
that you could have just called them up and been like, "Hey, did you know that the USS Pine Island was like missing from these dates on your registry?" And they'd be like, "Oh, look at that. We'll fix it.
Someday.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks, guy." I don't
You
know.
call them up and you tell them that, and there's
Yeah.
a scream, and the phone drops. You
Yeah.
hear them running away, and then pretty soon they come. Somebody else comes. I says, "Never mind, it's all okay."
It's taken care of.
Yeah.
It's taken care of. It's fine.
Yeah.
What's your? Thank you. We want to send you a thank you package. What's your address?
Yeah.
Where are you located right now?
Men in
Yeah.
suits and sunglasses will be delivering our
Yeah.
thank
We
you.
will.
Uh-huh.
Another thing that people say to back up their Nazi sanctuary / alien technology theory.
Nazi sanctuary?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's what it is. It's a retirement home for Hitler.
Okay.
I'd call that a Nazi sanctuary.
Onwards.
Nazi Hills.
Nazi Hills.
Nazi Hills.
What's Nazi Hills?
The Nazi sanctuary
Oh, okay.
in Antarctica.
I think you're thinking Nazi estates.
Anyway, sorry.
Nazi estates.
So apparently there's a claim that Byrd's remarks in the newspaper, the one that Joe read a couple minutes ago, was actually a bitter reality in the case of a new war. The continental U.S. would be attacked by flying objects, which would fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds, which leads these researchers to believe that Byrd himself was trying to warn people about the UFOs he'd encountered down there without, like, trying to circumvent, use that word right, his gag order from the Navy.
Yeah, although
or he just saw the speed at which missile technology was moving and thought,
Yeah.
Or the one that Joe read was a good translation, and this one was a weird translation.
I think the one that I read was actually, it wasn't actually a direct quote. It was more like a summary of his remarks. And,
Yeah.
And it could have been misrepresented as the idea of things coming over both poles. Maybe they meant the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know.
I mean, so the big question here is, like, why would the Nazis be hiding down yonder?
Well, because nobody else would go there.
Well,
So
except
it
for
is a good
tons
place
of
to
people
hide.
were going there all the time.
that's why they're on the moon, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but a continent the size of Antarctica, even if hundreds of people are there at any given time, you're still pretty unlikely to run into them.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, as long as you put yourself as long as you use some white
Yeah.
camo around your base, you're probably good.
Yeah. The only question is, how do you feed them? Natural resources being snow and more snow.
Oh, yeah, no, the Nazis have absolutely perfected greenhouse technology. Of course they have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Well, and maybe they don't need to because maybe they actually have alien technology. Because the other theory is that Nazis, again, this isn't an episode about that necessarily, but we've talked a little bit around the idea that the Nazis might have had, like, flying saucer UFOs.
There's been a lot of
And
discussion
also
of
had
that.
some kind of weird technology of, laser guns and stuff like that.
Pew pew.
I think
Yeah.
they would have won the war if they had that stuff.
I
but,
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe, or just maybe, the Nazis, in creating their base in Antarctica, encountered the aliens, and the aliens were like, sure, you can have our technology. You seem like good people.
Yeah, why not?
I don't know.
Well,
So,
it
yeah,
could be that
basically.
what if the Nazis stumbled across the aliens and their secret base?
Yeah.
And they blackmailed them. They said,
either.
if you want us to keep your secret, you'll hand us your devastating weapons. Otherwise, we'll rat you out.
True.
And the aliens said, oh, you got us good there. Okay, here you go.
Rather than just using our deadly weapons to obliterate you.
Yeah.
Well, there's actually no rule. I mean, the aliens might have some fantastic technology, but that doesn't mean that they're actually not morons. They could be. They totally could be. I mean, if you look at, there's a lot of people I see walking around today who have the most fantastic technology in their hands, like an iPhone, and they're complete boneheads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try to explain to your, if somebody came from the past, from the 50s, try to explain to them that you hold in your pocket
All of the
a
knowledge of the
device
world.
that could access every single bit of knowledge